Welcome to the HabitStack podcast, where we talk to fellow founders who are in the thick of things as they execute their plans to grow their business. Because stories about past successes are interesting, but hearing from people who are in the middle of the battle right now, that's invaluable. I am Scott, founder of HabitStack, and I'm here today with Chris Purcell, who's been a business analyst at Target, a vendor manager at Amazon. You may have heard of Amazon before, and then the global director of e-commerce at Renfro. And 10 years ago, he started his own thing. He founded Nexus Brand Group. So he has a tremendous amount of experience and context in e-commerce, leadership, strategy, execution. And so I'm excited to have him on the podcast today. Chris, thanks for coming on the show.
Scott, thanks so much for having me. Happy Friday. Excited for the conversation.
Yeah, so it's currently December. E-commerce is a thing at the present moment. Is it crazy times for you, or is everything set and you're just watching the numbers fly by?
It's a little bit of both. And so, luckily our team has done an awesome job of prepping for the peak weeks of the year. Last week was certainly one of the busier weeks within e-commerce with Black Friday. This week we had Cyber Monday. In total, we saw pretty good numbers across the board. For the next couple of weeks, the team is still on standby, making sure that we execute every last strategy possible to be able to maximize the revenue for our clients. Then come December 22nd, which is when Amazon shuts off the Prime shipping delivery guarantee before Christmas. We see kind of the year end at that point. So it's been a wild couple of weeks, but the team has managed a really good Q4.
I'm glad to hear that. It must take a lot of planning to gear up and prepare for this time of year. As somebody who consults and delivers for on the e-commerce side of things. So one question I have for you is, I may or may not have read the headline and not the article, but I came across something saying that it was, what was it? Oh yeah, volume was up on Black Friday or whatever, but units were down. And what I took from that was like, yeah, basically, so actually sales are down, just everything got more expensive. Is that right? And what do you make of that?
Yeah, exactly. So I saw the same report as well. And the report stated that over the entire Black Friday, Cyber Monday event, that global revenue across all retailers, including Amazon, was up 9%. Unit sales were down 1%. And so I think that kind of shows two different things. One, since the dollars were outpacing the units, that just generally implies that prices are probably higher than what they were last year. And certainly that's probably a result of some of the tariff pricing that brands have imposed to the retailers, and retailers have generally passed off to consumers. Some retailers have not totally passed that off. The other piece of it too, just with regards to unit sales being down, I think that there's a lot of questions around consumer confidence. We started to see some shaky numbers beginning in August of this year. And since then, we've certainly seen signals both on a day in, day out basis and on some high volume event periods like Amazon's Prime Big Deal Day back in October, and then over Black Friday, Cyber Monday. There were certainly some challenges, and generally kind of what we're seeing too beyond just a bit more research from the consumer side is that there's a preference to go for lower price products instead of premium brands like what had previously been blockbuster, doorbuster sales.
Interesting. Because this is an area that I'm not as familiar with, e-commerce, I have a couple like kind of insider questions for you. Maybe they're kind of basic and everybody knows this, but how do we get those numbers? Like why would Amazon and Target and all the other retailers share their numbers with each other so that we can get these totals? Like how does that even work, and what's the incentive?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And so part of it is because the retail numbers get syndicated out to a broader company, and there's a few of them out there. One of which is the most commonly used metric is called NPD. NPD is a massive retail data company. Beyond that, there's a number of different private companies that will actually use their own proprietary data stacks to estimate the sales coming off of online platforms. There's a few that are doing in-store things that are pretty interesting as well. But There's not necessarily an incentive for some of these retailers to provide those numbers as much as it is on the brand side who provide goods to the retailers so then they can better understand the trends at those retailers. That makes sense.
Oh, so it's not Amazon sharing the numbers, it's the brands who agree to share their numbers with these the data brokers or whatever?
Correct. Yeah, to a degree. I think some of it does come from retail feeds as well. And then specifically with Amazon, there are so many tech companies that have built their businesses off of the back of Amazon. And many of these tech companies have their own proprietary methods of looking at public facing signals from Amazon to estimate the revenue numbers that Amazon is experiencing down to very granular levels.
Hmm.
And many of them are impressively accurate.
Like what? Like what's in a public facing signal that you can, infer from?
Yeah. So one is called bestseller ranking. If you go on to any product detail page, which is an item listing page on Amazon, and if you scroll down below the fold, you'll find one section that will show you certain product information. One of those pieces of product information is this bestseller ranking, which will show its overall ranking on Amazon across every product sold on Amazon, and then down to the subcategory. So let's say a subcategory is you're looking for eyeglasses on Black Friday. You can get down to reading glasses to see how this one item compares relative to the rest of the eyeglasses sold on Amazon.
Yeah,
And
so I guess everybody who's ranked higher than you, and your own numbers, you can at least say they all sold more than you, at least.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. And so through a bunch of going into the weeds here, but through a bunch of data science and some really, really smart people, they've been able to figure out what each ranking corresponds to in terms of revenue.
Hmm.
And then there's a bunch of other data science that's added onto it. Super interesting stuff.
Yeah,
If
that
you're
is interesting. I wonder if Amazon ever seeds those, like, or plays with the numbers, so randomizes the numbers slightly just to make it so people can infer too accurately. Or I don't know.
if it's interesting. So on that point, what we have seen from Amazon, because they have tried to make it a little bit more difficult for these data companies to be able to understand what the true volume is during these high volume event periods, is they'll freeze this bestseller ranking, which is typically a dynamic number.
Right. Yeah, that's interesting. Well, that leads me to my next question. You've already kind of shared a little bit about this, but maybe there's something else too. As someone who's worked been on the inside, you've worked for Amazon, and also you now help brands succeed on Amazon. So you kind of have a lot of context for this. What's something that that most people don't about how Amazon works from the inside?
Yeah. This might get me blacklisted. First off, it's a very good question, but this might get me blacklisted from any sort of Amazon event going forward. There's a broad assumption from the outside looking into Amazon that everyone inside of Amazon, especially those that interface directly with the brands that are selling on Amazon, know everything there is to know about e-commerce and how Amazon works. Speaking from my own experience, I certainly thought I knew everything about how to grow a brand on Amazon when I was in Amazon's four walls. I did not know a thing about e-commerce until I left Amazon. And so I could speak about things in abstracts while I was at Amazon, things such as digital marketing, things such as SEO, things such as PPC. But when you're inside of Amazon, you're not the one that's actually controlling the levers on each of those aspects of growth for brands on Amazon. You just speak about them again at abstract. And so once you leave and you're actually in control of growing brands on Amazon and you get to implement all of the different approaches between SEO, PPC, content, et cetera, then you actually see what moves the needle. And from there, if you're managing to scale, then great, you can figure out what are the true tricks of the trade. And I think if you look really within the overall Amazon community, people are inside or outside of Amazon, the majority of people who have the highest authority on operating Amazon businesses are outside of Amazon and have never spent inside of Amazon.
That reminds me a little bit of with Google Ads. There are specialists from within Google who will help you with their campaigns. And so, do you think it's something similar? Do you think that that in fact that's and I think I've heard it multiple times from people like, well, they should know, right? I'm going to let them help me because they should be experts in how to get good results. I know it might just be conjecture, but it makes me wonder, like, well, that may or may not be true.
It could be. I can't speak to that with any authority. We only manage businesses within the marketplace space. I do know a number of Google agencies and Google operators on the outside that certainly have a much higher degree of expertise, or at least that has been conveyed from internal operators at Google. But I don't know that as a matter of fact.
Mm, yeah. Huh. Food for thought. That's an interesting. At the very least, it's a good realization or a good, sorry, reminder that um, you know, you have to test everything. You have to kind of make your own decisions. And then maybe one connection that I'm making is I've seen this is totally different. There is a thread that connects this. It's not e-commerce, but an experience that I've had over and over again is working with a company and they get purchased, they get acquired. They get acquired by a larger company, and there's this feeling like, whew, we're going to learn a lot from this larger company when we integrate with this larger company because they clearly have their act together because they're bigger than us. And then it turns out when it actually happens, like, man, we are way better than them. Actually, this is a gong show. And so size, size, the assumption that size, equals operational excellence, um, doesn't hold necessarily. And so anyway, there's kind of like that. You're like, well, man, people from within Amazon surely know all the tricks in the trade, but maybe not.
It's such an interesting point. And one of the benefits of being on the agency side is that we get to interface with so many different types of companies: large, small, high growth, high maturity. And when you get to look inside of those companies, you get to see varying methods of operation. And we've had some clients that have approached their recruitment strategy with essentially what you just explained. And that has been, let's recruit from the largest companies within our industry who have achieved senior level roles at those companies, and they will make us into the companies from which they came. Without thinking of exactly what you were detailing, maybe those people were not an integral part of the success that those larger companies had, nor did they potentially develop some of the processes or strategies that they implemented. And so when they come to a smaller company that are looking for those processes and strategies, there might be a big gap in what that person can do.
Oh,
It's super interesting.
yeah, that's such a good, that's another good example. Totally. Man, if we get that person on the team, phew, man, they must know so much. They ran they ran a department that, at this huge company that's 10 times bigger than ours. Surely they'll be able to level us up. And then they come in and it's like, wow, yeah, exactly what you described. Maybe they didn't build it from where we are to where they landed, and they just, or maybe it's a little bit like, they actually don't do any work. That's one difference. They do no actual deliverable. They only do meetings and thought and thinking. Anyway, maybe that's a little bit hard on people, but
I think that it might be fair. I think it also goes back to the recruitment strategy too. There was someone, I forget their name, they had posted on LinkedIn talking about some of the missteps that companies typically make when it comes to recruitment. And one of them was essentially they dubbed it as the unicorn fallacy. And that is, you recruit in this unicorn who is going to fix all of the problems you have in your company, which rarely ever works out for whatever reason. I think typically what I've seen that's worked out better for companies, including us at Nexus, is investing in the development of individuals And some of the best people that we have on our team came here with zero experience in e-commerce. But because we were able to take the time to be able to show them the ropes of what has succeeded historically for us, and then give them that foundation to which they can apply more current learnings or a different perspective, it, it seems like that's worked out very well and they've turned into solid operators.
Yeah, I think if you have the ability to bring people up from within, that in many ways is a much safer approach. Although Chris, I have seen it happen the other way as well, where you bring somebody in from the outside who is awesome, and it's like, wow, this is awesome. Like it does happen both ways, and so. And also like, I mean, or like, I'm sure this is going to be awesome. This is terrible. Like that happens too. And so I don't know. The moral of the story, I think, is that hiring is tricky.
It's tricky, but that's certainly true, to say the least.
Yeah. So Chris, you're building this agency that helps people do their marketing on marketplaces. Is it other marketplaces from Amazon?
Yeah. So the way that we think about kind of how we apply our services is really kind of three distinct areas of e-commerce. And so marketplaces, that would be open marketplaces where you or myself or anyone can open an account and then sell on it. Amazon is a very good example. It's kind of the leading example. Another one would be eBay. And then we also do retail.coms. So think of any brick and mortar retailer that also has a .com component, Target, Walmart, etc. And then the last component of it is going to be pure play online retailers. And that would be something like a Zappos. Zappos is only an online retailer. They don't operate as a marketplace. They don't have a brick and mortar store. And so we'll operate the businesses on behalf of our clients within those three ecosystems of e-commerce. And then we handle everything from the marketing, like you had mentioned, to product page optimization. So we do full on graphic design. We do SEO work for product pages. We also provide operational support as it relates to inventory management. And we have some really strong partners within the third-party logistics side of fulfillment. And so we'll provide all of those services. Basically, our clients hand over their business and entrust us to be able to operate and grow their sales on Amazon and beyond.
Yeah, that's cool. So, but like, so I didn't realize that you're involved in like the operational side of some of these things, at least to some extent. Like, how do you help people with inventory management? That's a new idea for me in terms of what you're up to.
Yeah. So there's a few other agencies that do this, but it is fairly uncommon to see a marketing agency also provide operational support, specifically within inventory management. And so with inventory management, we're not touching the physical inventory and we're not sending it to Amazon or sending it to customers, but we provide forecasting support to our clients. And so we ingest so much data from Amazon directly through our clients' accounts, as well as third-party data sources. So then we can get a better understanding of what's happening at a more macro level. And then from there, we will provide manual forecasting support. We're also, thankfully, to the development of AI over the last few years, are working on taking a couple of open source AI models, joining them together, and then using all of this data that we've collected over the years to be able to generate systematic forecast models to show what do we think a customer or how much customers will order from any given brand 6 months from now, 12 months from now. And so that'll allow our clients to be able to use that data to then go to their factories and put in production orders. So they're not ordering too much and get stuck with unproductive, unprofitable inventory, but they're also on the other end, not running out of stuff.
Mm. Yeah, that's super cool, man. And now that you explain it, that's a perfect fit for as an additional thing that you do for people, particularly because if they can't stock the things that are selling, that affects you, right? But you don't want that to happen.
Very true. If we're the ones that are running the ads, if we're the ones that are coming up with growth strategies for the brands that we support on these marketplaces, then we should absolutely have a hand in how much inventory we believe that our clients need to have. Otherwise, they're very disjointed functions. And that was one of the premise of putting together the services that we offer at Nexus. If you look at the ecosystem of e-commerce in total and really just drill it down into Amazon, which is a fraction of everything in e-commerce, you can reasonably go out and hire 3 to 4 different service providers just for Amazon.
Right.
There's agencies that specialize only within graphic design for Amazon. Other agencies that specialize only within one specific type of advertising. Some that are purely support for very specific things, like if someone's account got suspended, you call this person and they'll help unsuspend it.
Right.
We think, hey, why don't you just provide all of these services? They're so interconnected, it might as well be under a single roof.
Yeah. Well, that's the dream, right? That's the dream when you're working with an agency. They do all the things. So let me ask you this, Chris. Why the heck do you do what you do? What gets you up in the morning? What's exciting about this for you? What drives you?
First off, I'm a glutton for punishment. Anyone who has experience within Amazon, and this is my 13th Q4, will tell you that it's a very challenging area. But in all seriousness, it's an extremely interesting area, and I've always been very interested in challenges, to try to find what people don't want to do. And so with the amount of data that we're able to collect with
wait a second, to find out what people don't want to do?
Yeah, exactly. I think, there's a tendency that people will always go towards what is the easiest thing to do in personal or professional life, right? And I think getting into Amazon presents a lot of challenges, and having a full service agency presents a lot of challenge. It's certainly not the easiest path to take within this industry. But I found that e-commerce was really interesting when I was at Amazon. I found it to be even more interesting when I was outside of Amazon. And so that's just a personal interest of mine. And then in looking at the challenge of operating on Amazon, every brand that sells on Amazon faces these type of challenges. And so if we're able to subside some of those challenges on behalf of our clients, then awesome. But again, from a personal perspective, I've always liked to go after the more challenging things as opposed to something that's easy.
Yeah. Okay. I like that. But of course, there are thousands of incredibly challenging things that you could do, and you picked e-commerce. So, what is it particularly about e-commerce that that draws you in? Is it the data? Is it the variety? Is it what is it?
It's a really good question. So in part, I think it's the dynamism of it. People are always astounded by anyone who's ever been working at Amazon within the e-commerce space. Realistically, because I was at Amazon 10 years ago, my knowledge of what happens inside of Amazon has been dated quite a bit. Amazon systems have changed a million times in the last.
Mhm.
And so that's just how dynamic this space is. And so that is very interesting to me, to be on something that is always changing. The other piece of it too, admittedly, I'm a millennial. And so we do have this instant gratification need. And within e-commerce, it's really interesting because being an operator of a business, you can see the impact that your changes have within hours, within days. You don't have to wait 6 months for your efforts to show up. And so I think that's really interesting. I think I'm someone who has always had a high bias for action. Once I want to do something, or once I'm given something to do, I'm going to jump right into it and do it, as opposed to sitting there researching something and then do it 6 months down.
Mm. This is a more kind of philosophical question that I'll pose, and we'll see where we go with it. But in one of my, I'll see if I can pull it together into a coherent question. So there is this, I very much appreciate that I can order something on Amazon and have it delivered. It's like quite nice. There is this growing also recognition that we've gone fairly far down the path of consumerism and kind of like defining ourselves by buying stuff. And there's kind of this, I don't know if it's a reckoning, but I think people are thinking and feeling, trying to reconcile, their humanity with their consumerism and asking questions about it.
Hmm.
So how do you reflect on that? And we're all kind of like involved in, we're all a part of the mechanisms in various ways. But I guess what I'm asking is like, do you ever wonder about, man, I'm just kind of enabling people to get more stuff? I guess.
It's such a good question. And without derailing um, the benefit of my company, do I question it? Listen, I never have a moral question about what we do. I never have an ethical question about what we do. Is the core function of the company to help our brands sell more things to companies, to individuals, excuse me? Kind of. Yes. People are going to buy stuff one way or the other,
Mhm.
right? We don't work with any seller. We don't work with any individual who wants to put something on Amazon. And so, we go through the process of making sure that the clients that we take on both are nationally recognized, which to a degree will vet the quality of what they provide.
Mm.
And then we'll also do some research into them through our own channels as well. And so, if it comes down to people are going to buy something somewhere on the internet or on Amazon, great. Let's at least make sure that our clients' quality product is put in front of them, especially looking at what's been happening on Amazon largely over the last, call it decade. There's been such a surge of overseas sellers that may not be providing the highest quality of product. And they have found a way to be able to manipulate Amazon's algorithm to get more eyeballs on their products. So again, if it helps me sleep at night, it's because we're helping our clients sell very good.
Yeah. And I didn't ask that question because, as a gotcha or anything like that. It's just, we're all, I mean, I think we're all kind of in this together, and there are good things and there are bad things about how we operate as a society, and we're all complicit in it. And we all have to make our individual reflections about how we show up in that. And what you just said, I think, is a really good answer, right? It's that you work with people selling products that you think are good. Well,
It's a really interesting question though, because especially within e-commerce, you are enabling instant gratification.
mm,
And that's every time you go through and you hit add to cart and you get a shipment in 2 days. But again, I think if someone is on Amazon, which has been such a successful business for 30 years now, close to 30 years, people are going to continue to use it. And we're not necessarily enabling the customer, but rather we're servicing our client.
mhm.
That's the way I think about it.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, Chris. I appreciate you reflecting on that. Like kind of complicated. We all, complicated question.
Here, very complicated question. That's, that's a really good one.
Well, so how big are you guys? What's the agency look like?
Yeah. So in total, we're 27 people. Um, Last year, we managed $750 million of ordered revenue on Amazon across all of our clients. We were able to achieve a pretty good recognition last year. Last year, we were rated by Inc. as the 50th fastest growing company in the Pacific region.
Cool, man.
And thank you. It was a goal that I had set a few years ago after learning more about Inc.'s awards. And so luckily we were able to get that last year, and this year is looking really strong for us as well. And then for next year, what we're looking at is our first true expansion internationally. And I was over in Japan, let's see, we're in December. So that was 2 months ago in October. And started to lay the foundations for us to expand into Japan.
Yeah, big stuff. That's those are both great reference points, or right, great kind of like feathers in the cap. Congratulations. Let me ask you this. So you have 27 people, I think you said. At one point, you must have had maybe just you, right? Or a smaller than 27. And so, and my observation is that, the 15, 20, 25 mark is kind of, there's a phase change where you need some help with the management, right? You can't be even directly managing people anymore. I mean, you're directly managing some, but you can't do all. Did you go through that? And what was that transition like for you?
Yeah, we're still going through it, to be totally transparent. Yeah. So actually the timing is, the question is perfect. And you're 100% right. So kind of in context, the business started with just one. It was me. I was doing literally everything. And then I started to look for number two, distinctly at this point where I was working from home. My girlfriend at the time, who is now my wife, came in, and I was like, I could work for 24 hours for the next 2 months and I would still be underwater.
Right.
And so at that point, I was lucky enough to hire an intern who has since turned into my right-hand man. He's the head of our account management team, and is just a solid person through and through. And so as we've grown, and as we found more people to bring in at a reasonably senior level, we've had to figure out, how do we divide the responsibilities across the management of the company. And 4 months ago, we started to look at EOS as an operating platform. So read the book Traction. I had my right-hand man read the book Traction as well. And so then we started to implement EOS, at the organizational level. And again, we're still working through exactly the division of responsibilities, but you're right. One of the most difficult transitions I think anyone needs to make in the corporate world or in the entrepreneurial world is moving from operator to manager to lead. And as an operator, you are so accustomed to being on your keyboard every single day and doing the things. As a manager, you still need to be able to do that, but you need to manage people and develop them into being very solid operators. And then as a leader, you're probably not doing much in terms of the day-to-day hands-on keyboard. You're doing a lot of management of people, and you're doing a lot of development of the organization and the processes and the policies of the organization. It's been a wild ride. We're not perfect by any means. We're still working through a lot of things, but having the operating framework of EOS has been so immensely valuable to at least look at, how do we build this out?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So let me ask you this. What have you found? Like, how did you have to change as the founder from when you were managing operators, and now I think, I don't know all the details, but you're managing managers, or you're managing leaders, right? You're the leader you're leading leaders. Um, what did you have to? What was the learning curve like for you? What did you have to switch up?
Yeah, it was, honestly, for me personally, it was very challenging, and it was very developmental. Um, Going back to something I'd said earlier, that I have a high action for bias, whenever I see something, I want to do it. Right.
Right.
What I've had to learn is me doing that is detrimental to the operators, especially our younger team members, because they should be the ones doing it so they can learn it, so they can perfect it themselves and they can develop. And so I needed to learn patience and I needed to learn coaching. And coaching was much easier for me than patience. Um, but I needed to learn, let's let someone fail. Let's let them fail once. And then from there, we can correct what was done wrong. And they'll know, one, how to reverse engineer what they just potentially failed on. So they'll know the inner workings of whatever process it was. But two, they'll also know that they're probably not going to do that again and what to avoid. And so the two most challenging things kind of from that was, yeah, again, the patience of waiting to have something done instead of doing it, and two, allowing someone to fail.
Mm. Beautiful. Yeah. How would you describe, as things grew and you had a couple senior leaders or more, what were the pain points or the symptoms that made you think, man, I got to implement something. Let's do EOS, or whatever. Well, in your case, it turned out to be EOS. So how would you describe the thing? If somebody's listening, they're like, if you experience this, and that, think about adopting something like EOS. What would you say?
I would say a baseline, if you are experiencing running a business, I don't think there actually needs to be anything symptomatic beyond being within some business.
Right.
If you're in an organization to make money, I think that EOS should be implemented. And I do have a bias towards EOS because I've learned this more recently. For us, it was, how do we have more repeatable processes? How do we have more repeatable success as an organization? Um, Throughout the course of all of Nexus, we had relied pretty much on passive growth, and that was coming through my network. It was coming through referrals from our clients, referrals from partners, and that was great. But relying on referrals can be very dangerous because they're not predictable. They come at different times, and sometimes they don't pan out. Sometimes there's none at all. And so we need to be able to figure out, how do we switch from having a more passive growth into a more active growth. And that led to just some more discussions around what are other repeatable pieces of the business that we need to implement. And a number of our clients had implemented EOS on their side. And so that's what drew us to EOS, which again has been really, really useful for us, at least to be able to structure who's doing what, how we're operating as a company, what are our values, what are our goals, and to be able to achieve that goals, what do we need to establish and then prioritize on a quarterly basis to a monthly basis, and down to how we operate daily.
Right.
Super. Have you read anything about EOS or
Oh
tracking?
yeah, yeah. I'm pretty familiar with the EOS and scaling up. And part of my interest is that so HabitStack basically takes a slice of the EOS, the rocks, the quarterly rocks, monthly
Hmm.
milestones, and weekly tasks, and just goes deep in that area and tries to um, be a particularly smooth and streamlined way for teams to do that stuff together. And so, yeah. Anyway, I'm you're preaching to the choir. I think you're bang on in terms of the kinds of things that really help teams get a handle, or like kind of rise above just surviving and just like and start growing, even though they've grown. It's hard to, once you've grown, it's hard to grow, but it can be done with a little more organization.
Very true.
Cool. Hey, Chris, it's been a pleasure to have you join me. I appreciate you taking the time to chat through some of your experiences at Amazon. Give us some inside scoops there, the lay of the land in terms of e-commerce, but also this leadership discussion, and not to mention a little philosophical discussion about consumerism. It's been a great chat. I appreciate you coming on the show.
Thanks so much for having me. I had a lot of fun. All those were really great questions, and appreciate it. So have a great rest of your day and best of luck.
You too, Chris. Talk to you later.
Cheers.
Founders, if you're struggling to manage goals and execution with your team, HabitStack can help with that. I'm Scott Ward. Thank you for joining me on the HabitStack podcast.